You're very much a performance machine. Like you've got everything dialed. You're operating at a really high level.
It's crazy. Like the heat starts and I just click into this like mode where I'm just like, I'm winning.
But at the same time, you are this, Northshore kid who just wants to have fun and pal around with his guys.
Competition for me has always been about, can I like let go to let myself be able to surf in these moments?
You were like so young when you sprung onto the scene and kind of this hometown hero and, with a young mind, like that has to, kind of weigh heavily on you.
I lost so much. I lost every event first heat and I was not doing good at all. I kind of went on these couple of just free surf trips at one point and we were filming a bunch and I just remember having so much fun. Everything started clicking for me. I can have fun like that in competition too. Knowing a direction you want to go, having that goal set, but then just enjoying the process to that. That's the direction I want to go and I'm going to start here and then I'm just going to take it step by step. Being okay whether you fail or maybe you end up doing something completely different, but just having a direction and a starting point and taking a step to do it.
John, so nice to meet you, man. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You're at a really interesting stage of your life right now. Your son is almost a year old, right?
Just turned a year. Just turned 1 year, yeah.
And you made this, kind of semi-radical decision to hit pause on the professional circuit in your career right now, which I think is a really interesting and bold, confident move. But I'm curious around the decision-making process leading up to that and how it's been going for you.
It's funny, I don't think the surfing community was super surprised. I think because of my personality, I feel like people have maybe expected me to step away for a moment or two at some point.
Tell me more about that. What do you mean, your personality?
I think I'm just like kind of more of a free surfer at heart, like not a competitive surfer, but I'm very competitive at the same time.
Yeah.
But a lot of people will see me as like, at least I think like this person who wants to go off and surf good waves and just enjoy surfing.
This is like my biggest question around you and your career and your approach to life. Because I think your relationship to competition is really complicated.
It is.
On the one hand, you're very much a performance machine. Like you've got everything dialed. You're operating at a really high level. You're incredibly intentional about your approach to your craft and how you prepare for these competitions. Like it's pretty rigorous and meticulous, like at the highest level. But at the same time, you are this, Northshore kid who just wants to have fun and pal around with his guys and make sure that you're not losing touch with the joy that it brought you, throughout your childhood.
Yeah.
And that's like a murky, these things are they in competition with each other? Like how do you synthesize those two things?
That's been the hardest thing for me is it's always clashing. Like some of my hardest moments in my life of figuring out who I am have been during competition on the road and just going through these things of like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be doing this. I'm not having fun doing this. Because I grew up on the North Shore surfing, my family, my friends, and I love surfing for surfing. I don't love surfing for the competing side of it. And for me, it's always clashed because and I'm not really the personality type to be around lots of people and be told what to do and go surf like this or surf like that. But the one thing that does keep me coming back is like the mental side of it. I so much like of me enjoys that part of it that like, okay, I have to get into that mental side. What are these mental tools that I can learn? And it's like competing is this really compressed time of like tons of emotions, right? And so, one moment you get a really good wave and you're like all up on adrenaline, and then the next moment you fall and you kind of have to come back from that. And so it's I feel like I've kind of realized that I've learned all these like kind of bigger life mental tools in like such short moments, and you can really test them and see how that works kind of preparing yourself to go into these different moments.
But the competition is you against you.
Yeah,
that's what I'm getting from that. It's not about beating other people.
No, the competition for me has always been about, can I like let go to let myself be able to surf in these moments? And so when I get in the water and my worst heats, the worst I feel is when I'm not able to like let that tension go and just be able to surf how I surf. in my best heats, even if I don't make it, I'm like, it's funny, the ones that I'm able to let go and just surf, sometimes I lose them, but I come in totally happy and I'm like, oh, I had fun. That was super fun.
This is why surfing is such a curious, unique sport. Unlike track and field or swimming, there's so many variables and you're contending with nature and whatever it decides to deliver to you. And you have to figure out in the moment how to work with it, not against it for your own benefit, right? So you push yourself, but you have to let go, you have to surrender, and you have to find a way to be symbiotic with this, gigantic thing to, prove your mastery. Like it's a really tricky equation to solve.
Yeah, it's so hard because like sometimes you feel like I'm in my best headspace. Like I feel physically, mentally prepped. Everything is going right. Like I'm ready to do what I'm going to do. And then the wave doesn't come and you're like just sitting there, you're like waiting. And then it just doesn't happen. And you're like looking around like, wait, I was so ready,? And so it's really hard to like kind of like come to terms with that sometimes. But like you said, it's just that feeling of being able to like kind of let go to it and be like, I know if I get the chance, I'm going to be able to do what I want to do, but I might not get that chance too.
But it wasn't always the case for you. I mean, you've gone through situations in which you had, it seems like pretty kind of crippling paralysis anxiety when you were in a competition setting where you couldn't let go or you couldn't just allow yourself to, find that flow. And obviously that undermined your ability to perform.
Yeah. I think with anyone too, like that when you're tense and when you're overthinking it and overstressed, like your body is not going to let go to do what it normally does. Like for me, I think about it like when I'm in my best state, like I know how to surf. I know I could probably paddle out, get a good wave right now, not think anything of surfing, but I'm going to take off in my body. I'm just going to start like naturally doing it, And so I have to remind myself that sometimes, like rather than overthinking it and going like, what am I going to do? I'm going to take off on this wave and I could do an air, I could do a turn, I could like, there's so many things that I could do rather than just, I'm going to take off and I'm just going to start surfing, And I like through time, you start to learn little tools, little tricks that kind of get you into that space that where you might be kind of overthinking it, but then you bring it back. And like one of my little ones has been just like, okay, what's the easiest thing that I can think of doing surfing? When I'm like overwhelmed thinking of all the things that I can do, when I take off on a wave, I'm like, I'm just going to do a cut back. And that's just where you like just do a simple turn back. And then once I get a start doing that, like the rest of the wave kind of just happens. But it's about just like for me, just kind of getting that like really simple start and going with it. To
inhabit that state of no mind, right? If you're thinking and trying to figure out what the decision is going to be, like you're already toast.
You're already toast because you're thinking about it. You're not like.
But you have all this muscle memory, so it's trust also in yourself. Like I don't need to make a decision because I already know what to do and I'll figure it out.
Totally,
like intuitively and spontaneously.
Yeah, but that's the hardest thing.
But the head gets in the way.
Yeah, to go back and trust yourself and go like, I know that I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do, but. You see someone in the heat before do a huge air and I get caught up in that all the time and wanting to like the competitive side of me. I was like, oh, he got a 9. I want to get a 10, or whatever the scores are. And so you get caught up in that rather than just the like, I don't care what he did. I don't care what the other guy's doing in my heat. Whatever wave comes to me, I'm going to surf it the best I can surf it.
Controlling the controllables.
Yeah.
And in surfing, there's so few things that you can control.
Yeah, exactly.
But the Jedi move, like the Zen master move, is to not allow any of those externalities to impact like the stillness that you need to kind of allow yourself to unleash that like ultimate ride.
Yeah, and I think the biggest one that I've learned, and it's like counterintuitive, but it's like it's not blocking it out, but it's like just allowing things to hit you and then bounce off. Like my headspace before he is like. I start getting nervous and I start feeling it in my stomach and I kind of like start noting like, oh wow, like I'm feeling nervous right now. Well, that's interesting. Like I feel it in my gut. Like, yeah, that's probably pretty normal. I'm going out for a heat. There's a world championship on the line right now. Like probably going to be pretty nervous about this. And it's weird when you start to like let the things just kind of like come through like that, how you just kind of start to accept them one at a time rather than if I'm going, I'm nervous, I don't want to be nervous right now.
Resisting the way that you feel. Yeah.
Why am I nervous? I shouldn't be nervous. And then that just goes down a whole nother road.
It's the heart mind, right?
Yeah.
Like learning to really trust that voice. Because I've heard you talk a lot about like the body knows when it's in the wrong situation. And your evolution has in part been about like learning how to trust that. Like, I don't feel like I should be here. This isn't right for me, right? And instead of tuning that out, no, this is where I am supposed to be, and like trying to like argue with, what your body is trying to tell you, to instead like be in acceptance of that and like really honor and heed that.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's just, and that's what the last few years, at least, I've been learning more and more, is just kind of to accept those situations as they are. And like one instance was like the world championship heat at Lower Trestles here in California last year. It's like the highest pressure event I've ever surfed, And so like when there's tons of people, I get really nervous, and like tons of people watching, and I mean, anyone would, but like the one thing I just remember, I was like walking down, and I was like, at first, right when I stepped onto the sand, everyone's yelling and you're walking through all the people. And then I was like, kind of like, oh no, I'm going to block it all out and pretend I'm here by myself, going to surf by myself. And then I was like, wait, no, like what a cool moment this is. I'm just going to accept this. And then I felt like I was like this kind of like opening moment for me, where I just kind of was just like, this is so cool. Like everyone's cheering me on. I'm going out for this world title heat, and I don't know what's going to happen, but what a cool moment in my life. Like I'm nervous. This is a lot of pressure, like all these things, and it's just happening right now.
Yeah.
And I felt like that was like the moment where for me, I was able to be like, kind of almost laugh at the whole situation. Like I paddled out in the first heat. I sat there for 20 minutes. Not one wave came through, and I'm like, just able to like sit there, and rather than be like, my chance is now, like I was just able to be like, oh, like this is funny that this is happening like this.
And then it all clicks and it works.
And then the first wave comes, that you're able to take off on, and you're kind of in a good mindset about it. You're not in this tense, like, oh, this is it. This is the only chance. It's just kind of like, here comes a wave now. Like I'm relaxed. I feel good.
How did you go from where you were to that kind of realization, and that ability to not tune it out, but just almost leverage it, being like, what a privilege to be here. This is so cool. All these people want me to do well. Like instead of like, like, what if I fail? Like, doomsday scenarios.
It's been my whole career learning to get that to that point, and I think, like I've gone through so many heats where I've been overly tense, overly trying to block out what's happening around it, and pretending like the crowd's not there, or the competition's not there. And sometimes that works, but then sometimes it doesn't. And I'm in this state of like, it keeps coming back to me, like a reminder of like, all the people are there. And I'm like, no, they're not, and it's like this, like kind of, fighting within myself, rather than just being on one track and just being like, oh, I'm accepting it. Right. I'm here.
You have to be symbiotic with the wave, but you can't be symbiotic with the wave unless you're symbiotic with yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. And so once you're symbiotic with yourself, you can like relax and just allow it to happen.
Your entire career though has sort of burdened is the wrong word, but it's sort of loaded you up with a lot of external pressures. I mean, you were like so young when you sprung onto the scene, and kind of this hometown hero, and with a young mind, like that has to kind of weigh heavily on you, and all the the next Kelly Slater and all this. It's like there's a lot. That's like a lot of pressure for a young kid, and then you kind of live up to it. You have those back-to-back world titles, and then you have your struggles like any professional athlete. I mean, there's a whole journey in there to kind of arrive 7 years later and win a world title and have the confidence to say, I'm going to step back for a year.
Yeah. So it just my whole life has been it's been like this just crazy kind of waves up and down. And I think, but the real changing moment for me was like when I was kind of coming out of my teen years and kind of coming and like, okay, I'm really going to pursue competition seriously. And then I couldn't really handle the pressure of that, because like you said, like I felt like there's a lot of expectation about what I was going to do. And I lost so much. I lost every event first heat, and I was not doing good at all. And I was like, oh, this isn't really working.
Because it was just weighing on you. Think it just was weighing on you so much? Do you think there was some self-sabotage? Like if I lose, then maybe I can alleviate some of this pressure?
Maybe self-sabotage, but also just like is this really how I want to surf, or is this really what I want to do with myself, like surfing wise? And just, I was like, losing's not very fun. I don't know if I like this. And then I lost a bunch. And then I kind of went on these couple of just free surf trips at one point, and we were filming a bunch. And I just remember having so much fun. I was like really enjoying just trying new things and new lines and all these different things. And everything started clicking for me. And once I kind of found that without competition, I was able to come back to the competition and be like, okay, like I can have fun like that in competition too. I can do the same thing. Like I don't have to surf a certain way. I can surf my own way with it. And I think for me that really opened up a whole new world of like, oh, I want to compete in my own way, not someone else's way.
When the thing that you love and that you're good at becomes your job, and then all the joy is drained out of it, then, you're on a fast track to nowhere, right? So like having the wherewithal, the presence of mind to say like, I need to stay in love with this thing. And like, how do I do that?
Yeah. Yeah. And so then like I kind of went into this space of where I was competing good, but pretty inconsistently. I was having fun doing it, but like I said, inconsistently. And then I got into another phase where I was like, okay, now I really want to take competition a little more seriously. And I like mixed in a little bit more structure and a little more mindset stuff, just kind of into like pinpointing into the competition side, but allowing my surfing to still be kind of a little bit free in what I was doing. And the thing that I noticed, which started to become really fun, was like I made the practice pretty structured and pretty rigid on what I was practicing.
A mindfulness practice or a mindset practice? Like what was it?
Mindset practice and surfing practice, like certain maneuvers or certain just things on a wave to carry speed through. I got really specific about what I was practicing. And then when I would get to a heat, the whole goal was to be able to let go and know that I had practiced it and just kind of let myself do it. And I found that was like a really good structure for me. It kind of had the mix of both, of this like structured practice, and then I was still able to let go and surf how I want to surf within a heat.
I mean, that's like a theater actor who rehearses, the script 1,000 times so that they can, show up on opening night and be off book and just,
and you don't think about it, and you just go with it. Yeah.
Right. What are some of the tools along the way that you've discovered that have been helpful from like a mindfulness and mindset perspective?
So some of the, there's a lot of breathing stuff that I like to do, just during, before, after, several different types of breathing, I guess. And then visualization for me has been a really big one. And I remember when I was getting into visualizing, at first I was visualizing like myself on a wave doing a turn or surfing, and it never really worked for me. So then I started visualizing how I wanted to feel before the heat started, and that was a lot easier. And so for me, like if I feel this just relaxed kind of letting go, like I'm going into the heat like this, and so that's when I do my best. And so that's what I started visualizing. I started visualizing like the walk down from the contest, the getting there, the like, oh, like the waves look so fun, like, and just that kind of really relaxed feel to it. That's when things really started clicking for me on the mindset side. I was able to like do that over whatever, 100, 1,000 times visualizing it. And then when the moment would come, I would just kind of let it happen. And I'd be entering into these heats, just feeling like so relaxed and so good. And just like, oh, here we go. Like it was.
That's super interesting to me. Of course, I've heard and I've practiced like visualization, like you visualize every tiny detail of the event.
Yeah.
And you walk through like the best case scenario, but then you do worst case scenario so that you can be prepared when things don't go your way, et cetera. But that's all like practicalities, right? Like but the idea of approaching visualization from an emotional perspective, like how do I want to feel, I think is very cool. I've never heard anyone talk about that.
For surfing, I think it makes a lot of sense because surfing, like I can imagine visualizing specifics of what you're doing and say like track and field or something that's very like you're on a, it's.
There's only so many variables.
There's only so many variables, exactly. Where surfing, it's like, you can be like, okay, imagine yourself on a wave. But you're like, what kind of wave?
It's never going to be the wave that you imagine.
You know, there's a million different versions of the same wave that it could happen. And so that's what I was struggling with. I was like, well, I could take off and there could be a ramp, or I could take off and I could do this or that. And so that's when I was like, that doesn't work for me, just the emotional side. Mm-hmm. But I think that goes to my core of like who I am when I surf, is like this relaxed feeling of like I'm having fun, and that's when I surf my best. So just kind of getting myself to that state.
Hey everybody, pay attention, because this episode is sponsored by Squarespace. So Squarespace has been a long-time partner of the show, and what I love about it is it just demystifies everything about what's required to make a website. With Squarespace's new Blueprint AI, it's actually like having a design partner who reads your mind. And, look, I know there's a lot of hype out there, a lot of slinging when it comes to emerging AI tools, but Blueprint really delivers. For example, you can share a few goals, and then it just automatically generates all this personalized content that actually feels authentically you. And for tech challenge creators like myself, they've got this drag and drop editing feature that makes the whole process surprisingly intuitive. So check it out. Head to squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/richroll to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Movement has shaped my life. It's a teacher, it's a mirror into the soul, and it's a path that not only connects you more deeply with yourself, but also with others and the world we share. All paths require tools, and those tools matter. That's why I've partnered with On, a brand that honors this movement path with premium sportswear to support it. Everything that On makes is next level in design, clean, and always with function top of mind, lightweight, breathable, and built to adapt. It's gear that disappears on the body, so you can fully drop into the experience of movement. Head to on.com/richroll to explore their performance-driven collection. I had Kai Lenny in here a while back, and he was kind of walked me through like his fitness regime and like his diet and nutrition and all of his recovery, like how he trains. And I was really impressed with just the professionalism of it all. And I know that you have a version of that yourself. Yeah. But this is like a new evolution in surfing. Even from, your younger years, there probably weren't that many people who were approaching the sport with that degree of intentionality. No, I definitely think it's in the last generation it's really come on to be like, you're training, you're doing the mindfulness stuff, you're kind of doing everything you can to win, where before it was a little more of a party on the road, and then you go surf some heats too. And if you were taking it seriously, maybe you'd be like some weird outlier, right? Like you wouldn't Kelly be part Slater. Of the, you would be kind of ostracized. Yeah. Well, like Kelly Slater, he was doing everything differently, and he was just winning everything and on top's lonely. And so he was kind of this outlier, I feel like, of what was happening. And then, you have like a Mick Fanning come in, and he starts taking things really seriously also, and he starts winning. And then now today, every kid is doing everything they can on the tour to win. It's fun though, because it's made the whole level of everything go way up. So what is a day in the life when you're super focused? Not now, because you're just sailing and spending time with your family. And a day in a life when I'm super focused is relatively structured. So if I'm getting ready for an event, it's I'll just kind of take into this last year's I had a trainer, a nutritionist, meal plans, kind of schedules of surfing somewhat of like, hey, tomorrow I want to work on these boards, and kind of keeping the sessions somewhat short. And are you making those decisions, or do you have a coach? Like, how does it work? I have a coach, but I'm definitely making decisions on how it works for me. And then on top of that, just recovery stuff. So it's definitely like a structured, but kind of like a loose structure almost, on depending on waves and how I'm feeling. If I wake up and I'm like, I don't feel it, like I'm not feeling good today, then, I'll be like, okay, my body's saying I need to rest. I'll rest more. I just know for myself, I will overwork rather than underwork. And so I know I'm not lazy. So if I need a day of rest, I know I'm not being lazy. Because I tend to do the opposite. If I don't set like a point for myself to come in, my sessions will go from
an hour to 4 hours. I'll still be in the water going, okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to get one more. I think I'll get it on this next one.
And then you get injured and you wonder why.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is the out of the ocean physical training regimen? What does that look like?
So for me, my out of the ocean regimen has changed so much over the years, just through injuries and figuring out what works for me. This last year I worked with a guy named Chris Prosser from Australia, and he does kind of like a mix of DNS stuff mixed with movement and a lot of body weight stuff. And so
that's dynamic neuromuscular stimulation. What does that stand for? I think so.
Yeah, something like that.
Stabilization.
It's based on like foundational movements of like the human body from when we're like a baby to, where we are now. And so I worked a lot doing that, and I found that was that felt the best on my knees, that felt the best on my back, like everything. And I didn't add any extra load because I'm pretty physical outside of the water. I love riding my bike. I love surfing. I love downwind foiling. I love all these different things. And it's hard to keep me out of the water. And so instead of like limiting myself too much on those, like I definitely limited my sessions a little bit, but I also Kelly Starrett was one that helped me. He was like, hey, let's not stop everything you're doing. Let's just do everything you need to do in order to keep doing what you're doing. And so it's like eating more, rest, more sleep, recovery stuff, more movement stuff. And I did a lot of Kelly's movement stuff as well. And so it was this balance of like kind of limiting my sessions a little bit, but then also like adding in so I'm still enjoying it and having fun so that I can keep doing what I want to do.
And is it basically like the entire day is devoted to training in one form or another, whether it's like recovery, nutrition, traiing? I know you've got like a hyperbaric chamber and you have a float tank and you've got like the cold plunge. You got like all the toys.
I have everything you can imagine. Yeah.
So it's just kind of like one thing to the next.
Yeah. So I kind of would, in my mind, I would set up a loose schedule of like, okay, I want to try to do hyperbaric every day or every other day for the next 2 months while I'm home. I want to try to do the float tank 3 times a week. I want to work on these things while I'm in the float tank.
What are you working on when you're in the float tank?
When I'm in the float tank, I do a lot of like the first bit of it's like kind of relaxing, kind of like letting the thoughts go through, because you end up it's just everything's dark and you start thinking a lot. And so I try to get through that and just breathing and just relaxing and just thinking of myself, just like relaxing every muscle. And then from there, once I kind of feel a little more clear, I'll go into visualization stuff. And that's where I start to visualize like an event. And like I said, the kind of leading up to it and how I want to feel. And I feel like I get a lot out of that. And so I did that quite a bit in there.
Is that in addition to a formal meditation practice, or is that your sort of your version of a meditation?
It's just part of it. Like, so last year I probably meditated every single morning. It'd be the first thing I do when I wake up. I'd wake up, and even if I'm just still in bed, I'd just sit there and I would kind of start like some sort of 20-minute thing before I get up. I found for me that worked the best because I would do it. And so if I got up and got moving and started surfing and stuff, it's hard for,
it's hard to stop. If you don't do it right away. I know that well.
So yeah, I found a good mixture of that. Like I would do it in the mornings, and then when I was at home, I would use the float tank. Yeah.
And now that you're on this sort of sabbatical, I mean, you're still surfing all the time, right? But you're just not training.
No, but I'm pretty physical, like with what I do in my daily life. I love like getting to that point at the end of the day where like, I can't move anymore. I'm so tired, like pushing myself to that point. So I still do a lot of the stuff I would do. Like when I'm at home, I ride my bike every day. I surf. I do movement stuff. I still do a lot of it just because I want to feel good and I want to feel like I can wake up and surf the best I can. Has
it been helpful to see like Kelly Slater kind of step back and dip back in and have this, incredible longevity in his career? Does that like instill a little bit more confidence in you that I can take this break and come back and I have a long career ahead of me still? Yeah, I think just seeing him win events at 50 years old was like, for me, was just like, I want to be able to do that. Even if I choose not to compete at that point,
I would love to be able to still be surfing like that. I love surfing and pushing myself. So it's been more of an inspiration than anything to be like, oh, I want to do everything I'm doing during competition because I just feel better in that way. I think clear, I surf better, everything. And so, but just maybe in a slightly more family orientated way,
Yeah.
So I'm still doing a lot of it, but it's just a little bit different.
What do people not understand about the behind the scenes of kind of keeping this machine running? Like with who you are and at the level that you're at, you have all these relationships with brands and sponsors. There's duties that, you have to fulfill for them. You have to be a content creator. You have to be kind of an online, you have to be online in a certain way. And you're also like an entrepreneur. You've got your Florence brand, and that's a lot. Like do you have a team of people that help you manage that? Like what is the kind of daily kind of routine around just like the business side of being John?
Yeah, the business side for me has become bigger than I ever kind of thought it would be, I guess. I think when I was growing up, you'd just think like, oh, I'll just surf and I get a sponsorship and I go surf events and I make little movies and stuff. And so, but now it's just cool where I feel like I've really enjoyed where my life has kind of gone, and I've been able to like start my own brand and get to learn the back end of the business of that and growing that as well. Growing a brand has been one of the most fun things I feel like I've done in my career. And now I have my brothers on board with me, and the product side of it is like something that I've just been so interested in learning more about materials and just different things that we can do to make our life better and what we're doing in and around the water. I never even thought about how much I would enjoy that.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And it looks like it's going really well.
Yeah, it's been going really well.
And like the products are like very like dialed and high end.
Yeah,
you're not screwing around.
No, we're not screwing around. But like you said, on the back end, it takes a lot of work. And I think I'm still figuring out what the balance of that is. And now we have a 1-year-old. And so I'm like, okay, family life. Okay, that takes up 80% of the time. And then you have this other 10%. There's no more time anymore. There's no more time just sitting there going like, oh, I'm bored right now. What am I going to do?
But it focuses you.
It focuses me for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you think about balance?
I feel like balance for me is just, it's like dynamic. It's always moving. It's always something that's flowing and changing. And I kind of feel like I'm always trying to figure out what the right balance is. And I don't know, kind of like knobs, you're like dialing one thing up, dialing one thing down, seeing how it feels. Okay, no, that went a little bit too much that direction. Okay, let's go back this direction a little bit, and figuring out what the right kind of path is for it. I feel like I've done that through my competing too, with training and everything. It's just kind of thinking of it like knobs, like, okay. And being okay if something doesn't feel right for a week, and then being like, okay, that was a weird week. Let's go back the other way a little bit.
Yeah. Not all the knobs are going to be perfectly aligned on any given day. I think it puts a lot of pressure on people, this notion that you're supposed to be in balance all the time. And certainly if you're going to, excel at the highest level at something, your life is fundamentally by definition going to be out of balance. Like you're not achieving these goals without it being out of balance. But I think of it as like a pendulum that's swinging.
Totally. And I think that's where like I've learned to like try to be okay with like there being a bad week, like there's going to be bad weeks. There's going to be bad days. And you're like, okay, how did I like that? Was that bad because of this, or was that bad because that actually didn't make me feel good at who I am or follow my values? And so kind of following that as my guide, I guess, has been kind of what I've been learning to do.
And do you have dudes in your life that like check you, like, hey bro, like you're a little off here, like maybe reel it in, or like who give you the hard feedback and
my
that
family,
you trust?
My family is probably the closest to that. Like
your brothers?
Yeah, not afraid of saying like, that was weird. Like, what are you doing there? Like, and I'm like, oh, you're right. That doesn't feel like me.
Yeah,
that didn't feel right. I'm glad you said something.
I'm curious around your relationship with your mom. Like she seems like a pretty large figure in your life.
Definitely, yeah. My mom's been a huge figure in my life. Just raising us on the Northshore, and like we didn't have tons of money by any means. So like figuring out how to get us to go like to all these amazing places in the world when we were young, and going to Bali for 3 months, and then picking up all of our stuff and going to Europe for 3 months. And just kind of felt like that was a huge part of
like single mom with 3 kids.
Yeah.
Like how do you
like
manage that?
We were going to Bali when we were really young, and my brother was like 4, a broken leg with a cast up to his hip. My mom's pushing him on the cart, and then me and my other brother are 6 and 8, and we're just terrorizing. And I have my 1-year-old now, and I'm like, I don't know how you did that.
So what was it? Like what was motivating her? Like what was her commitment?
I think my mom just loves being in and around the ocean, you know? I think she loves surfing, she loves the beach, and she wanted to share that with us. And so, yeah, she just took us on the adventures with her.
And she's still around, right?
Yeah, my mom surfs every day.
Yeah.
She loves skateboarding. She goes to the skate park every day, and she still paddles out to Pipeline on her longboard. And so it's pretty fun to see that. Is
the North Shore basically the same as it was when you were a kid and you're just running around barefoot, you know, to school and to surfing? And I mean, it's sort of like free range childhood.
Definitely. I mean, it's changed a little bit for sure, but it's still pretty much the same. It's a super small community. The elementary school I went to is still there. The kids are still going to school and going to the beach after. Like, we have the bike path that runs up and down it, and the kids are riding their bikes to go surf every day. And so it's pretty much the same as when I grew up.
Mm-hmm. That kind of experience is, you know, I grew up in the 70s, like that. It was sort of normal, you know, but
Yeah.
like you see that as like quickly disappearing from most modern society. And, you know, Hawaii is pretty unique in that regard.
Yeah. It's this really special place just because of, I mean, if you've ever been there, it's like I said, a really small community. We have one bike path that runs across the whole thing. Or the highway that runs across it, and then the elementary school there, and Pipeline's across the street, which for surfing is like one of the epicenters of surfing, I feel like. And so for me growing up there and being a surfer and getting to watch my idols win world championships there, it was pretty incredible. And so, yeah, it's like...
It's sort of like Bill Gates, like growing up proximate to some kind of supercomputer at the right time, you know, like all of the elements were there, you know, it's like this perfect cocktail to like create you. I mean, you have this mom who was enthusiastic about surfing. You literally live, you know, on the beach where the greatest waves in the world and all the greatest surfers were. You start surfing when you're like 6 months old. She's taking you out and you're surfing on your own at 5.
Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely like a good mixture of, like a good chain of events to get me where I am today.
Of course you want your son to be a surfer, right? Like what, but like in my experience, like the universe sometimes wires it. Like what if he's like, I don't like the beach.
To be honest, like I don't care. Well, I would really love if he likes being in the ocean, because I think we'll be able to share a lot of moments like that.
I don't think he really has a choice though, right?
Yeah, I don't think he has a choice. We're literally living on the water right now.
Yeah.
So.
In similar ways and in different ways, like you're a waterman in the way that Kai Lenny is. Like you love the water and you like doing all different kinds of things in addition to surfing, but a little bit different from Kai in that like sailing is your big thing. So talk to me about the whole sailing thing.
Yeah, so like I just in and around the ocean, I love doing everything. Like Kai, like I'm inspired by Kai all the time. He does a million different things and he does them all really well. Mm-hmm. So for me, I like sailing a lot. For whatever reason, like, I don't know, 10 or 12 years ago, I got on like a little boat with my friend in front of our house, and I was like, this is pretty cool. And we like went to Waimea Bay, which is down the beach. And I was like, wow, we sailed down here. That was pretty fun. And then I was like, I'm going to get my own little boat. And then we were just like up and down the North Shore. And then eventually I was like, I want to be able to go to the other islands. And it just kind of became this like, it like opened up my whole world of this like self-adventure, I felt like. And then mixed in with being able to like be on the ocean and read the ocean in a whole different and new way. Like the open ocean is so different from like being by the reefs. You know, the waves do different things, the swells look different, and I just really enjoyed and I'm still enjoying like learning that side of it.
And you've done some pretty big sails, right? Like didn't you sail from Hawaii to Fiji, and we did this New Zealand sail recently? Yeah,
we sailed from a couple of years ago. We did Hawaii to Fiji, and that was 3,000 miles of just like there's not much between, but that was really cool. And then you know, that trip was especially cool because it's so long. You can't actually see the weather forecast for the second half, of the trip. And so you're looking at the weather forecast for the leaving pretty much. And you're like, okay, it looks like a good time to leave. I have no idea what's going to happen on the second half. And then it turns into these just like, you're just looking at the weather where you are as you're going and trying to avoid like any systems or anything like that. Where we just did a trip from New Zealand to Fiji. And it was actually the weather was a lot scarier, a lot more unstable than that trip was. But, you can kind of get an idea of what the trip is going to be like the whole trip before you leave. You're not guessing what the second half is going to be like. Like it's a 6-day trip and the weather forecast is relatively good for the 6 days. So it was just different, but definitely the weather was.
But when you're like out there and you just can't see land and no one's coming to save you, like there's a high degree of like vulnerability.
Yeah. This last trip was the first time I was really like, I had a couple of nights where I was like really scared. The most scared I've been on the boat probably. Just with these moments of like, there's a current with 30 to 40 knot winds and it just makes these really steep waves that are breaking and they're really close together and the boat is just getting hit. And you're in the middle of the night and you're sailing and you don't see the waves, you just hear them break and then they hit the boat and you're just like, it's that scary sinking feeling of like, oh, what's the next one going to do? How many more of these do I have to deal with until it gets light out? So for me, like I'm still learning a lot and I wouldn't say I'm like nearly as experienced as a lot of the captains or boat captains in the world. But so that was a moment for me. I was like, whoa, this is scary. I don't know what's going to happen here.
And what is the perspective that you glean from that? Like, what does it give you? Like, cause it's just not an experience that many people have.
The perspective, I guess, was just like going through the experience. It was pretty interesting how relative things are. Like, so before that trip, like 20 to 30 knots feels like a lot of wind, and I'm like, whoa, this is windy. This is like, I try to avoid that. And then after this trip, it was blowing. Like, I felt like just since we left New Zealand, we saw 50 knots a couple times. We saw 30 to 40 knots of wind. And then it makes that 20 to 30 knots feel really calm. And you're like, oh, this is pretty easy, And so it's pretty interesting when you like expose yourself to these like more extreme situations, how the situations that you thought were extreme before aren't as bad anymore and they feel much more manageable. And I feel like that's kind of with life in general, like surfing, big waves, and then you go to a little bit smaller and you're like, oh, I was in that situation and now this situation feels pretty manageable.
Yeah, nobody just drops in on an 80-foot wave. No, they're working up to it so gradually, over a long period of time. It seems like there's so much energy in surfing around the big waves, right? And that 100-foot wave, it's like, if you're not surfing the big waves, like you're nowheresville, right? Like, does that hold an allure for you, or is that just, that's not for me? Like, I've heard you talk about like how much you love surfing small waves.
Yeah, no, I love surfing big waves. I think growing up in Hawaii, just you're kind of like that experience thing. Like you just are naturally like put into those situations where you're experiencing it. And so it becomes kind of like part of your surfing kind of circle. My brother that's all he does. He chases big waves. And so for me, it's not something I'm like, oh, I want to go get the biggest wave ever at Nazaré in Portugal or anything like that. Like I just like every once in a while going and having that experience, whether it's in Maui or it's on Oahu. It's like being able to experience those sessions with your friends. There's this feeling of like after the day finishes that you're like, it's like this like come down of the session and you're like, oh, that was intense and that was fun. Like this whole huge adrenaline buildup. And it's amazing being out there with waves when the waves are that big. Like you come over a wave before a set and you just see the next one and how much water and how big it is. And that sinking feeling you get of just like, I don't want to be here.
It doesn't matter how many videos I watch or, I can watch 100-foot wave and look at these Nazaré waves and think that I know what that's like. But I know like there's just no way that I can even come close to grasping what it must be like when you're actually out there or you're being towed in.
Nazaré, I haven't surfed Nazaré big, so that I can't say. But like just from my experiences at home and just, we do a lot of paddling. We try to paddle big waves a lot. And so that in itself is just scary because you always get put in situations where like you'll paddle for the first wave and then you'll miss it and you'll turn around and you're like, I don't even want to know what's behind me right now. And you turn around and the next one's breaking and you're like, okay, I'm good. This is going to be okay. Everything's good.
It's amazing. Have you had any close calls with sharks or some gnarly, scary wipeouts?
Wipeouts, I've had a couple. I had like nothing that I've been like really close to death. I've had, moments where I've been like, ooh, could have been bad. But a lot where I've seen friends that are really close to us and been in the water when friends are unconscious and being resuscitated on the beach. And I think when you're that close to it and you see it happen that much, it definitely builds this little like internal fear and causes you to be a little more calculated with what you're doing.
Yeah.
But it's just crazy because it could happen at any point. It happens to the best of us. And surfing's unpredictable. So
yeah.
But
it connects you with your own mortality in a way that I think is helpful as a life lesson.
Oh, it definitely does. It definitely makes you realize, and I've noticed even like since I've had my son, like I kind of second guess things sometimes now when I'm in the water and I'm like gone to like another level more calculated of like, I'm going to wait for a good wave. I'm not going to force myself on a weird one that I don't know what it's going to do.
Do you think that if and when you return to competitive surfing, that little thing in the back of your head of having a son could interfere with performance?
No, because I've kind of already gone through it half of the year last year. We had our Tahiti event after my son, my son was born and then I went to Tahiti 8 days later.
Right.
Like it was right then. And we had a pretty good size swell for that. And I kind of was thinking about it, but then it's crazy. Like, just from competing for so long, the heat starts and I just click into this like mode where I'm just like, I'm winning. I'm going to win.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to win. whatever it takes.
Yeah. I don't really care about winning and this shouldn't really be a competition, but I'm definitely going to win.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what it is. Like you're like before you're like, oh, like this is cool. Like I'm here. And then the horn rings and then you're just like, yeah. Have
you watched that HBO comedy, The Studio? You seen this TV show?
I haven't watched it. I saw
there's a really funny episode where they're at like the Golden Globes and Zoe Kravitz is like up for an award and then all the press, she's like, I don't understand why art has to compete with each other. And I'm just happy to be here. She's putting on a whole show about like how it doesn't matter. And I haven't prepared a speech and like, I'm not going to win anyway. And then behind the scenes, she's like, oh, I'm definitely winning. Like I've been campaigning for this. There's no way I'm not going to win. It's like, it's that same thing in a nutshell.
Yeah, it's totally that same thing. Yeah. It's just like, there's something just in us that I feel like is competitive. And when you're competing, you just click in and you're like, I'm going to win. Like, that's what I'm here for.
What are some of the other like lessons that you've learned from surfing, being in the ocean that you think are applicable to life? Like I think there's so much wisdom in the kind of relationship that you have to not just sport, but like you're dealing with the ocean, the unpredictability of it. Like how do you manage something that's unmanageable?
I think
and how that spills over into other aspects of your life.
For me, a lot of it has come from the competitive side. Like I said, like I feel like there's so many, it's so many like emotional moments in such a short amount of time. And over time I've built up these like tools and stuff. And I've been able to like start seeing like, whoa, these apply to my whole life in a sense. Like I can use these anywhere I am. Like when I was talking about when I was scared on the boat, like all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, I've been nervous. I've been under pressure like this before. Like I'm going to do this breathing and I'm going to kind of like relax into this mode. And then I'm able to like click into a gear where I'm like, oh, I can make clear decisions on what we're doing now. And so it's been pretty amazing for me to like be able to compete and then learn all this stuff in this like compressed format and then be able to take it to the rest of my life, whether it's business or being on a podcast and being like overly nervous of talking in front of people.
But nothing is made better by, nerves and anxiety, right? Like you're going to make your best decisions when you're present and you're calm. And now you have these tools that allow you to inhabit that more, fluidly and frequently.
Yeah. And that's all come from my like competing and being in the ocean and the unpredictability of the ocean within competing where you're being like judged and scored and have to perform your best, but perform your best on something you don't know if it's going to come or not. And being okay with that. So I think I've learned a lot in that sense.
Yeah. Adaptability.
Yeah.
You can't control the ocean. You can't control what the press is going to say about you. You can't control what the competitors are going to say or what the next wave is going to be.
Exactly. And like my career has been, I've had a lot of injuries back to back to back.
And expectations and attachments.
Yeah.
You know, like you're expected to be this person. You probably put a lot of pressure on yourself. Things don't always work out. Like how do you move forward?
And you go and like over time, I've just learned that like I'll go into these deep kind of hard places where I'm just like, oh, like I feel like I'm not getting out of this hole. Like I'm like in this deep hole of like, I can't compete. I'm not doing what I want to do. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be doing this. And then, but just realizing that like, it's just not to be cliche, but it comes in waves, you know, like it just is like, you go to this dark place and then you kind of come through it and then you come out of it and you're like, okay, I see that I went through that. And what if that happens again, I'll go through it again. Mm-hmm. And I know it won't be forever, you know?
What would you tell that young 13, 15-year-old John? Like, what do you wish he knew that you now know?
Don't fight it. Just enjoy it. Like, I guess just let go to the process of it because it's what's going to happen is going to happen. And I don't know, like it's hard because I wouldn't want to change anything that's happened. Mm-hmm. You know, everything I feel like that has happened to me or everything that I've gone through has been because it's been this learning. It's like a life learning lesson of because I didn't know this, I was able to learn this, mm-hmm. you know? And so I don't think I would want to know everything that I know now because it wouldn't have been as fun,
sure.
I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's a super healthy way to look at it. Of course, you wouldn't be the person that you are had you not gone. You have to go through those trials and tribulations to learn these lessons. This is what we're here to do.
Yeah, exactly. You go through these darker moments, these harder moments, and whatever it is, and then you learn so much from that. Like, I went through back-to-back ACL surgeries, one after another. Like, and you know, the first one happened when I was on one of the best runs of my career. Like I had won 2 events, got a second, like, and I was like so far in the lead, going for my 3rd world title at the time. And then I tore my ACL and had to go for an ACL reconstruction. Never had surgery before, done anything like that. And just, I mean, the surgeries are not fun. They're hard to recover from, you know? And so going through that made me realize like, oh, like I'm kind of on this like, yeah, like I'm competing and trying to be my best for sure. But I'm also, it's like the bigger picture of like my life, I feel like has been on the mental side of it, on this like, it doesn't matter if I'm competing or if I'm recovering from an injury or if I'm trying to be a dad or whatever I'm doing. I think the process is still the same and the things that I'm trying to learn are still the same. So it doesn't matter what I'm doing. It's just, I'm still trying to accomplish the same things within my mind, if that makes sense.
But writ large, it's basically like, how do I show up as the best version of John, you know, in the moment to be the most present and available and, you know, that you possibly can for whatever you're experiencing.
So it's just pivoting from one thing to the next. Like, oh, I'm all into competing now. Now I'm going to go all into recovering and learning how to heal myself and what are the best things to heal myself and how can I be the best healer that I can be.
As we enter 2025, we each have 365 blank pages waiting to be filled. So maybe you're ready for a plot twist, or perhaps there's a chapter of your life you've wanted to revise. But it's not about resolutions that fade by February. It's about becoming the author of your own story. Therapy can be like having an editorial partner on this journey. It's not just for crisis moments. It's for anyone looking to develop better coping skills, establish better, healthier boundaries, or simply help you to become your best self. All of which experience has taught me, as someone who's been in therapy for decades, is something you really can't do alone. Everybody needs expert feedback. So if you're considering therapy, which I think you should, BetterHelp makes it highly accessible. It's fully online and tailored to fit your schedule. You complete a questionnaire to match with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time without incurring extra costs or any charges. Your well-being is worth it. Visit betterhelp.com/richroll today to get 10% off your first month. We're brought to you today by Momentous. Here's where I keep all of my supply of Momentous supplements. But for post-workout, all you need is the Momentous 100% plant-based protein. What impresses me most about their upgraded 100% plant protein is their commitment to quality. They source pea and rice protein exclusively from the US and Canada, creating a complete amino acid profile without any of the gums or fillers or stabilizers typical in this type of product, which results in taste and texture that truly delivers. So, if you're like me and you want to take supplements that are made by and used by the best in the world, go to livemomentous.com/richroll and save up to 36% off your first subscription order of protein. And if you don't want to subscribe, you can still get 20% off all my favorite products. Along the way, whether it's like recovery, healing, mindset, mindfulness, breath work, like who have been your influences? Like have there been books or people? You mentioned Kelly Starrett. Shout out Kelly. He's been helpful to me in my recovery from back surgery. You know, we both know like what a gem of a human being that guy is, but who are some of the other people that you've turned to or the practices that you've adopted that have been most helpful?
There's been a bunch of people that I've been able to work with. Like, you know, I mentioned Chris Prosser from Australia. Like was pretty big in helping me like learn a lot about myself last year. And then Tim Brown, he's actually here. He's a chiropractor, does a lot of really good work and just healing and stuff. The list goes on. Mike Gervais was another one that
I was wondering, you guys must know each other, right? Like that guy's got to be your sensei.
Yeah.
You know, you guys are made for each other.
So Mike,
I love that guy.
Yeah, he's amazing at what he does. And he kind of helped me get on this like, almost like clarifying my thoughts on the competitive side of things and like putting a structure to it almost to be able to like, okay, this isn't like, I'm not working on something random here. This is like something that I can like build and not perfect, but like just build on, you know?
He has so much clarity and his ability to kind of communicate these ideas that are hard to get your head around, to get your mind right. I mean, he's incredibly gifted at that. Yeah. And he's a surfer.
Yeah, exactly. And so he understands it and he gets it. And so there's been a ton of people like that I've been able to work with through my career, in just all different sorts of things, whether it's physical recovery, mental recovery, whatever it is, and learn a lot from it. And then take it and go do my own thing with it and remold it into my own thing and be like, okay, now this works for me, you know? Yeah.
So if I was Mike Gervais, I would ask you like, what does mastery look like for you? Like, how would you define mastery?
I don't think,
Do you think in that context?
I kind of do, but I kind of don't. Like, I don't think you can ever really become a master of anything. I feel like it's just endless. And I feel like mastery for me is like, I'm really into the internal thinking in the mind, you know, because I feel like once you get a handle on that, you'll never have it perfectly, but you'll be able to apply it to anything that you do. And so I think that's mastery within itself, is just being able to get a handle on your internal self.
Mastering the self is the key to mastering anything else.
Anything you apply yourself to.
Well, you're not going to master anything if you're not a master of your own mind.
Exactly. Yeah. If you're just kind of completely acting at random, then I feel like the things you do are going to be at random.
How do you define success? Has that evolved over time?
Yeah, definitely. Like, it's funny, when I was competing and going for my first world title, I was like, okay, world title, that's it. That's what I want. That's like once I do that, I've done it, you know, like I'll feel good. And then it's just the craziest thing, because you hear it from other athletes and stuff, they accomplish these huge goals, but when I accomplished with that and then I finish and you wake up the next day and everything resets.
You're like, why am I the same guy?
You're like, I'm the same, nothing's changed. Like, and so you kind of just keep going on about your day. And that actually was like pretty hard for me, because I was like, I just chased this whole life thing thinking that this would like, I guess, like solve all my issues. And then you win and then you finish it and you're like, everything's exactly the same. Okay, now how do I cope with that? And so like figuring out how to cope with that and then like come back again and like be like, okay, now why am I competing? What's the point? You know, because you could go into that mode of just like, I accomplished it, I'm done. Like there's no reason for me to do this anymore. And I think that's where I really started getting into that mode of like, oh no, I'm kind of going on this bigger picture, longer, full life. It'll take my whole life and I'll probably never accomplish like really getting to know myself and master myself and the decisions that I make.
So success then is a commitment to self-mastery.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, commitment. I guess it's a commitment. I think that's a really good way of saying it.
What's really funny is every single person who's achieved some, audacious goal has the same story. Like, this is like because you have to be sort of insane, to chase these things and to achieve them, and driven in part by thinking that this is going to fix whatever broken part you have, you know what I mean? And every single person will say, and then I did it, and then I was the same guy, and it was so disappointing. It's like, you could listen to 1,000 versions of that story on 1,000 podcasts and read 1 million books, but we all sort of think that we're going to be the exception. Like, but not for me. Like, you don't understand. It's going to be different because like this really will fix me or then, but it sounds like where the maturity is and what you learned from that and thought, well, winning a second one isn't going to fix it. Like a lot of people just get on that hedonic treadmill, like, oh, well, it didn't fix me, but that's because there's this other thing. Like when I get
maybe
that,
if I do this
and
time,
you just your whole life, but to like learn at a young age, like that's not the solution. It's an inside job. And there's another focus of my attention and energy that's going to be required if I want to solve that dilemma.
Yeah. And I think that's where it really helps me through, like, I bring up the injuries because I just felt like that was such a big part of my road to this last world championship. But like, it allowed me to go into those and be like, okay, like I said before, like I'm just kind of changing what I'm doing, but I'm still going after my same like life goal, and it allowed me to do that really well. And then I healed, and then I'm like, okay, now I'm competing again, and I'm going to put my mindset back into this again. And you're always building this one thing, no matter what you're doing in your life.
Right. Process over outcome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's good that you love surfing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It makes the process part a lot easier.
Yeah, it does.
Has there been any thought of thinking like, do I need to return to WSL and do the competitive thing? Like you could go and be a Kai Lenny type guy who's like, or like a layer, like they don't do competitions. Like they have a life around surfing and they can support themselves and, have these beautiful lives, but they've opted out of that paradigm.
I definitely see that, and I really love like sailing and exploration. I think that's probably where I would go if I wasn't good to go back to competing. I'll just continue like going and trying to surf new waves and try to go around the world or something. But there's such a big part of me that loves the competitive side because of that. Like just you learn so much so quickly about yourself, I feel like. And I really, really enjoy that. And I still am deeply competitive at heart.
Yeah. So are you going to race your boat also, or you just want to use it for adventures, or do you feel like you have to get into that world?
I don't feel like I have to get into racing. I feel like the learning of like exploring and going to these really remote places is enough of a challenge. There's just so much to learn from it. It feels kind of endless. But that's what I'm enjoying right now. But that's, I really do. I go year by year. Like this year, this is what I'm doing. Next year, I might be doing the same thing, but I also might be doing something completely different.
It is unusual for surfers to be sailing. Like you hear about foiling and all these different other kinds of like, like paddling and all that. But like, it doesn't seem like there's that many who are committed to sailing like at a higher level. Yeah,
I think there was an era like earlier in surfing, with Hobie Alter and Joey Cabell and these earlier guys, these guys that were amazing surfers and what they were doing, but they were also building their own boats and sailing from Hawaii to Tahiti and doing all these other things. Like it's so I really like am inspired by that like generation of just these like complete watermen, and no matter what they were doing, like it didn't have to be coastal, it didn't have to be around only waves. Like it was just the ocean in general. And so, and the outdoors, like a lot of them did so much stuff in the mountains, and they weren't like tied to like one category of it.
Are you a fan of, is it World Cup sailing? Like with those super yachts and what is that called again? America's Cup. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a fan
like
of
Oracle and like all these like crazy, is it like the Rolex series or something like that? Like those insane boats. It's like the Formula One of sailing.
Yeah, I'm a fan of it. Like the guys that do it are very athletic and very like that mental focus is there, and so I have a few friends that do it, and so they kind of think on those same wavelengths, I feel like. And then on the other side is the technical side of it. the things that they're building to make these boats go, like, I mean, those boats it can be 10 knots, 10 miles an hour of wind, and they're doing 45 miles an hour.
Right.
Like, so that's like pretty crazy to be able to create something that's just going that quickly off the wind.
Just from an engineering
perspective. Like, yeah, the engineering part of that for me is really interesting.
That's an expensive world.
It's
boats, man. Yeah, like I don't know what kind of boat is your boat?
I have a gunboat 48, it's called. It's a catamaran. It's 48 feet and it's super lightweight, carbon, everything, strong and fast. It's a lot of fun to sail.
And to be able to take it and surf weird places that no one has ever surfed before, probably, right? Is that part of the allure?
That's definitely part of the allure. Like, just like, even it could be a 1 foot wave this big or a 10 foot wave. It all feels like pretty similar. Like, you come around the corner and like, look at that little wave. Like, I wonder if someone surfed that. I'm going to go surf it. So that's a pretty fun feeling.
What is your forecast for the next generation of surfers, the young crop that's coming up right now? Like you talked about, like the professional level that athletes are kind of unanimously taking right now. Like what can we expect to see, like a bump in performance?
That's a hard one to say. Like as for the performance side of things, I don't really know where surfing will go. I think it's at such a hard level. It's hard to think of what's going to happen. The wave pools are becoming a pretty big thing. And so there's a lot of tricks being done in that.
Right. Because you can just train consistently
on the same exact thing every time, which is so new to surfing. So it's hard to say what that will look like in 10 or 15 years.
And more those are cropping up, right?
Yeah.
So this will be more ubiquitous. And just imagine some kid who was your age when you first started surfing, but they're like in that thing every single day with just, being able to perfect moves on the exact same wave.
So, and who knows how big the waves get to in those pools and how good they get in the future. And maybe all the events end up being run in those pools. And I think that would shift surfing so much to like a way more performance orientated thing where it's like, it goes back to that visualization thing where you're like, you can actually like visualize the same thing over and over again and work on something. And probably go like in the direction of like snowboarding, I guess, seems like with more spins and flips and things like that. And then on the other side, I think that people are going to just keep taking it more and more seriously. And I don't know, maybe at some point everyone has like a physical therapist. They have a whole team with them, like everyone's going to every event right now. I think there's only a few guys that travel with like a full team, but like at some point everyone will have their own team and it becomes this like performance level that's like across the board up here.
What was your experience surfing in the Olympics? So 2-time Olympian, Tokyo and Paris. Was that different from WSL?
Yeah, it's definitely different just because there's a lot of hype around the Olympics and you do a lot of talking before and so it's like this slow pressure build up to it. And then the realization that you only have one chance at it, And I think like it was funny when I went to Tokyo, it was like during COVID. So it was a really weird Olympics. There was like not a lot going on. You'd go down and you'd surf your heat. There's no one around. And then you'd come in and, it was funny because that one I had built it up in my head. I'm like, this is the Olympics. And everyone's like telling me, I had some friends that had done the Olympics. And they're like, hey, it's a big deal. Like, don't discount that it is a big deal and don't go into it thinking like it's smaller than it is. And so I went into it and then I was like, what are they talking about? Like
no one's around.
This feels like a normal event. And so when I left like that Olympics, I kind of was like, I wished I would have thought more like, no, this is like a normal surf contest. And so when I went into the next one, I was kind of like more in that mindset. Like, I'm going to treat it like a normal event, how I would approach a normal event, everything. The thing I didn't realize that was going to be so different was you're very controlled on the lead up to the heat. And so
what does that mean?
So you have to sit on a certain boat with your coach and you get the certain amount of time to watch. And then at a certain time, because it's broadcasted, everything has to happen at a certain time. And so then at a specific time, you have to go to this next boat. And then you're standing there with your jersey with the other competitor for 5 minutes or something. And then you're sitting there for 5 minutes. And then the heat before it ends and you have 45 seconds to get in the water and go. And so it's like this like kind of stepped schedule that happens before the heat that was way different than I'm used to.
So for people that don't know, normally you would just be, out with your heat in the water for a certain period of time and you just get the waves that you get.
Yeah, well, normally like the lead up to your heat starting, like, so I have my routine, so my routine, I show up usually an hour before my heat. I watch the two heats before, or the heat before, then I get ready and the heat just before mine. Do my warm up, grab my jersey, go down the beach, find a little space by myself, kind of like get into my own little zone, get in the water, and then like kind of feel my thing there. And then I'm kind of heading out into my heat. I mean, I've like been allowed to like do my own little thing to get out there. Where the Olympics is like, it was like very like, hey, you have to be here, then you have to be here, then you have to be here. And you're like looking at the time for each thing. And you're like, okay, now I got to get over there. And then you're standing next to the competitor you're about to surf against, and the waves are big, and there's just like, he's trying to do his thing and you're trying to do your thing. And it's just like it was way different than what I'm normally used to.
Yeah. It's all very regimented and controlled, and you're sort of, corralled from place to place.
Yes, exactly.
That's ubiquitous, for whatever sport you're in, I think, at the Olympics. But you guys were in a really unique situation because obviously Paris Olympics, but you're in TV, right? And I'm watching this on TV. I was actually with Gervais, where I was in Paris. And, and we were talking about the surfing. And I was like, it looks like those guys have it pretty good. Like you were like, your dorms were on a cruise ship, right?
Yeah, it was like
you were staying on a
boat.
Your
team. We were actually staying on land, and we
were.
Yeah, Team USA we had an incredible setup. Like, yeah. So.
I was just looking at the cruise ship, and I was like, this looks a lot better than like what all the athletes in Paris are having to deal with and having to get on buses and all that. But Gervais told me that actually it was quite challenging because that cruise ship was so far from where the surf points were, and they would have to get up early and take these other boats and then go to land and then take other boats out. Like there was a lot of like logistical issues.
If you were on the cruise ship, it was a mission to get to your heat. Like even more so than I was saying, like, you got to get on a boat to the land site. Then you're on the land site waiting for another boat to get out to the wave. Yeah. And then you go through the whole thing I just explained.
Yeah.
And we kind of had it. Yeah.
Where I live, I walk out my front door and go right to pipeline.
Yeah.
Why can't it be like that?
Yeah. So it was just definitely different in that sense. Like, and I wish
adaptability.
Yeah. And I just didn't, I don't know. I underplayed it in my mind leading up to it. And so when it came to that moment, for me, I was like, oh, this is like way different than I was expecting. Also, not to mention the week leading up, you have set practice times. So, hey, you're going to go practice from 9:30 to 10 tomorrow with these two other teams. Where normally it's like, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to go surf when I think around the same time my first heat is, and I'm going to play it like that. Where this was just like, it was scheduled all the way through.
Yeah. So you don't have that ability to control your routine.
It was really interesting though, because it caught me off guard a little bit. And when I got caught off guard, I got so nervous. And then it was really hard to come back from that nervousness of like, oh, okay, like, wait, this is not what I was expecting. And it was just one of those moments where you like realize you're like, I'm so far from being like totally a master at doing this. Like,
so do you feel the pull to go back? Like, is there unfinished business there?
Yeah, for sure. I think the Olympics is such a fun challenge, just because it is pretty different and it's such just a big event.
So LA 28, where are they going to do the surfing?
They're having it down south at Lower Trestles.
Well, so you know it well.
Yeah. So
you've done well there.
A little separated, but it would be pretty cool to be a part of that.
Well, it's a little more proximate than Tahiti and Paris.
Yeah.
LA 28 is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
I hope the city can be ready for it.
I know.
But it's pretty exciting. It's going to be here.
It's so exciting. I hope I can be a part of it.
In terms of, I want to get back to like the life lessons, that you learn from the ocean. It is a very, not necessarily Buddhist, but kind of like a Eastern philosophical kind of spiritual relationship that you have to have with nature in order to perform. And I feel like that gives surfers a really interesting perspective on life. Like we talked about adaptability and presence and, mindfulness. Like, are there other ripples or aspects of what you do that you think are interesting for the average person to hear about that they could glean something interesting for their own life?
It's hard to say whether it's just from the ocean or not, like just purely from the ocean. But I guess the one thing is just like that connection to nature. You're out there, you're surfing, there's wildlife, there's waves, you're reading the ocean, and you're kind of in this space. And I guess the one thing I've learned is like, I don't know how good it is for you to be out in nature, to be out in that kind of like, just whether it's in the mountains or in the water or whatever it is. Like, I think it's like, yeah, like deeply, innately good for the human body and mind and everything. And I know for myself, especially, like if I go surf for 20 minutes and I'm just by myself in the water, like I come out like a different person, you know? If I go for a hike in the mountains by myself, like you come out like a different person. And just that feeling of being outside and just kind of like we talked about that before, of that feeling of like letting go. I think that's what happens kind of in nature. It allows you to have that feeling of just like, okay, I'm kind of letting go to just everything. Everything's just kind of happening, you know?
And a humility.
Yeah, the humility. Like you can't control it. It's just, it is what it is. And I think being okay with that, not being able to control it.
You live a pretty holistic lifestyle overall.
Yeah.
I would say, in the grand scheme of, modern society.
Yeah. I try.
Most of the time barefoot.
Yeah.
Saltwater drenched.
Exactly. Like it's just every day at the beach, every day in the water and the mountains are just where I feel the best.
Is it strange when you travel and suddenly you're in some huge city?
I think California has always been I spend a lot of time here. We have our main offices for our business here and stuff. And every time I fly into California, I don't know, like when you fly in at night and it's just this like crazy gridlock of lights, it's like, you're looking at it and you're just like, oh my gosh, to me, it's surreal every time. It feels like a different world. And then you get here and it's just like, life is so fast. Everything's moving so quick. It feels like everyone's in a rush to get somewhere.
No, it's just that you guys are going too slow.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we travel to Hawaii and you're like, come on with the coffee line,
Like, everyone's just like, it's all good. Like we're doing our thing.
Are you still a beekeeper?
Yeah, we have our beehive still.
What is that all about?
Just another thing that I don't know. I get into all these different little hobbies. I see it and then I get really obsessed about it. And then I'm just like, I got to know, or I got to try, or I got to see what that's about.
You've been doing that for a while.
Yeah, we've had the beehives for a while. We have a couple friends that help us with it a lot because we travel so much. But just getting to learn it and understand it a little bit, like it's such a complex little system. I don't know. It's so interesting to me to every time we like open up the hives, just the system that the bees have and how they work. It's pretty incredible.
And do you keep the honey or like sell it at the farmer's market? Or
we don't sell it, we hoard it.
That's a lot of honey.
Yeah, no. So we have the hives, like we lose some hives sometimes. Sometimes we get more. So we've caught like a few swarms and then you gain 2 more hives. And so sometimes we've had up to like 6 hives, and then I think right now we have 4. So it depends, like, and which ones are like producing. It's pretty amazing. Like all the hives are within a couple feet of each other, like standing right next to each other. And one hive could have found like the nectar and flowers at one spot, but the hive next to it could be totally suffering and not have found it. It's so crazy how that works like that. And so it's always a balance of like getting honey out of the right ones and leaving the other ones, not touching them. So it's not always as much honey as you would think.
Yeah, I would have thought it's just cranking out honey all the time.
No, we definitely get like gallons of honey each time we harvest, like once a year. But yeah.
And where does the photography enter the picture? Like you're a big Leica guy, right?
Yeah, so photography.
People who are into Leica are like, they're super into Leica.
Yeah, I like the Leicas a lot. I have 2 Leicas, but I got into it. Like my mom was always shooting photos when we were on the road, and then I kind of just got into it at one point. And then it was random because I was like, I was on a trip and a friend had a rangefinder camera. I was like, that's a pretty cool type of camera. And then I just looked, I was like, what's the best type of rangefinder? And then everyone was like talking about like Leicas. And I was like, I'm going to get one of these. And that first Leica that I bought at that time, I think I was like 17 or 18 or something. I still have it. I still use it all the time. And it's just such a solid little camera. It's fun to shoot. It makes you think about the photo more. But also I just think it's a little bit of a it's kind of a novelty of bit of a camera.
It is. And when you see a Leica, you know it. Like there's something
Yeah.
distinctive. Like you can't quite put your finger on it, but
I
you
think
can tell.
through the lenses, you know, they have their colors that come through the lenses, the colors that come through on their sensors, also on their new cameras. Like it's pretty distinctive to Leica.
Have you been to the Leica gallery here in LA?
No, I haven't.
It's
but
you would dig it. It's pretty cool.
It's awesome. Yeah.
So you take that when you travel, and you've just been chronicling your life.
Yeah, I saw
some videos where you're showing somebody some black and whites.
I don't know what to do with my photos, and I'm like too lazy to like really actually do anything with them. So I just kind of like keep storing them and keep organizing them. But I love taking the photos at all these places we go. I have a Leica M10 and an M7 that shoots film. And the M7 was the first one I bought. And then for the longest time, I just shot black and white and developed my own black and white at my house. And that was really fun to learn that process. It's just a whole different side to it.
Yeah.
So many variables that you can like change and adjust and on the back end of shooting a photo.
Do you enjoy the content aspect of your job? Like the idea that you have to be putting out these videos all the time. Like there seems to be like an endless appetite for surf videos. Like people love it. But I would imagine like you seem like kind of you don't seem like somebody who's like seeking the spotlight who's like getting off on that kind of thing.
No, it's funny for me because I'm torn between the whole thing. Like my brother is really good at, he has like a YouTube and he's like kind of a big personality in that way. And he gets it all out there every minute, like Instagram and YouTube and all this stuff. And for me, it's a lot harder because I don't want really anything to do with that treadmill. But I love the art side of putting together projects and film and videos. And it's getting to a funny point because everyone just craves these really short YouTube or Instagram things. And they're like liking the more raw, just low edited kind of side of it. And for me, I'm like, I don't want to do that. I want to put together these like really nice things, but they take so long. But by the time they come out, it's like old news for everyone.
Well, this is the tension between art and commerce, right? It's like what I like and what's cool versus what the algorithm likes or what people want to see.
And I think the algorithm just wants that raw, quick, short, in your face, like in the moment. And I'm bad at that.
Did you grew up with Conejo Smith, right?
Yeah.
Like, so he's like making YouTube videos all the time. I've watched a bunch of his videos. Yeah. He seems like he enjoys it. Like he's more of a natural making that kind of vloggy stuff.
Yeah, I think Conejo enjoys it a lot. And that's interesting to me because like he's kind of natural, like really into mindfulness and breathing and stuff. And so I actually haven't asked him, but I want to now. But like how he balances that, because they're kind of counterintuitive in a way.
Right. If you're talking about being present and mindful, but you're making content out of it.
Yeah. Like so it's like, how do you do that? Like, I want to know.
I know. And in this sabbatical year, like your sponsors are cool. You've got buy-in and support to do this. So is that a challenge too? Like back to the kind of like economics and business side of like how you make everything work.
Really see it as a sabbatical. Like it's like more of like just putting my energy into a different place, And so like a lot of my partnerships, I've been fortunate enough to be able to partner with people that I'm really aligned with, like, and that their values align with my values. And so when I was like, oh, I want to go sailing and adventure with my family and do projects around that. Everyone's like, great, that sounds awesome, And so I think that's the benefit of like, one, having my own brand that I just do that. And then the other ones are just like, everyone's in line with that and everyone is like all about getting outdoors and the outdoor life. And that's kind of become part of my inspiration behind my own brand and just what I kind of represent, I guess, is that trying to inspire people to get outdoors is a big one for me because I've spent so much time in and around the ocean that you just want to protect it and you want to do all these things to protect it. And then I kind of came to a realization that like, it's really hard to tell someone that hasn't spent much time in the ocean or around it, hey, you should protect this. It's pretty important. They have to have their own connection point. They have to have their own experience with that to want to do that. And so I figured the best way is to inspire people to go outside and find their own connection to it,
It would be hard if you're somebody who's in the ocean all the time or you're in the mountains all the time, it would be difficult to not be an environmentalist.
Yeah.
Right. Like
exactly.
you're in it every day. You're seeing things
You
other
see the
people aren't.
changes,
Like,
yeah.
what is the message that you want to impart around sustainability and environmental awareness without bludgeoning people over the head?
No, but it's a hard one,
Yeah.
because like I said, like if you're not out there and seeing it and feeling it and like have those amazing moments in it and then see the changes that happen, like it's
or be in the Philippines or somewhere and see all the garbage, or
it's hard
like
to
see the changes.
Force feed that to someone who's never seen that or been a part of that. So like I just have gone more to the side of like, I just want to get people like excited to go outside, And so on that side of it is like, yeah, I think once they get excited, then it's a lot easier to have that conversation and be like, oh, like check out this. This is pretty interesting,
Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Like, do you think about that, or are you're so present and mindful? Like you're in your moment, dude.
5 years is really hard to say.
Yeah.
I could still be on my boat.
I mean, you have goals, you have dreams, you have things you want to accomplish.
Yeah. My brand has become a really big one, like growing that in the right way and doing things responsible and making things that are really great. Like, I think that's a big part of my 5-year goal. I have these competitive dreams still that I would love to do, the Olympics, another world title, things like that. But then I also like want to go sailing around the world, and that takes a couple years, and experience all these different cultures and places way out there and surf amazing waves. So I don't know if I can do that all in 5 years. So I kind of got to like take it year by year and be like, okay, this year I'm doing this. I'm going all in on this.
And that pendulum swings.
Yes, exactly.
The balance meter.
The balance, and each year you're like, okay, how am I going to balance
If I'm sailing
this?
around the world, is my life in balance?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It depends on how you define that, I guess.
Yeah.
What would your advice be to a young up-and-coming surfer with dreams of glory and a commitment to excellence? Like, what have you learned that you would want to impart to the younger generation?
I think what I've learned is like, it's really important to find your own way. And kind of let that process happen, because you see a lot of kids now and they're being coached from such a young age to become whatever they are. But I think like it's so important to kind of go down your own path and feel those mistakes yourself, learn things yourself, because then it's just ingrained in you and you find your own path that's going to make you your best. Like me and you, for example, like we're going to have totally different approaches to something to be our best. And so that's what I would try to explain is like, really let it happen for yourself and make your own mistakes.
Yeah, it's self-understanding.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're young, you need guidance and you need externality, like somebody else to like guide you, right?
Yeah.
But at some point, how do you have to take ownership of that?
Yeah. And being able to take it, like I like that a lot, like being able to take ownership of the mistakes or of your failures or of your losses, not going, I lost because my coach told me to do this. Like, no, you lost because you made that decision to do that, And so taking ownership of that, that's when you really start to learn. And that's when things just start to like steamroll. I feel like is when you're able to come in from a heat and you've lost and you go, yep, I didn't surf that wave well. I didn't go on that wave or whatever it is. It's no one else's decision making but your own.
But there are like all the young kids have coaches now, right?
Yeah, it's a crazy thing, and I think I don't want to discount that at all. Like having a coach is so important. Like I worked with Ross Williams for the last 8 years now, like through my 3 world titles, and it was so fun to be able to have someone to be able to like. But the way we worked was like he's always there as my sounding board to be able to like, hey, I want to start going in this direction. This is what I'm looking to do. And then he would kind of give a little bit of like, oh, that looked really good when you did that, And then I would come in and look at the footage and go, oh, you're right. That did look really good. Like that didn't feel good when I was out there, but that actually looks good. I'm going to keep working on that. And so just someone to kind of help pull you back to reality sometimes, because it's really easy to get caught up in your own mess of mental stuff.
You need an outside perspective who's objective, right? And that relationship should be collaborative.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so like Ross has like always been there and really good at helping me get to like feeling my best, feeling confident and feeling like, okay, like I'm in my space, and like my whole team has been that, like of like, we've kind of worked on this like relationship of this, like when I go out to heats, I feel confident. I feel good. I feel like I'm doing the right stuff. I've had so many sessions where I've come in before a contest, like the day before, and I'm like, that board felt terrible. I didn't feel good. I felt slow, sluggish. And he's like, what are you talking about? Like, you look totally normal. You look fast. And just that day in my head, I was not feeling like I thought I should be feeling. But then I come in and I talk to him, then I watch the clips and I'm like, you're right. That's in my head.
Short of that, like without that external feedback, when you get into that negative mindset or you start to spiral, like how do you pull yourself out of that? Or how do you, kind of maintain a positive mental attitude?
I think breathing has been a lot of that, like and self-realization, like in that, like, oh, I see that I'm starting to spiral. Okay. I'm going to take a couple deep breaths. I have these tools that kind of like help me get just kind of get yourself out of that mindset for a second. And then for me, it's like a breathing, a couple thoughts to like reminders to like get myself jump started out of that. And then a couple small things that I can do really easily. Like I said earlier, like I'm going to take off my wave and do a turn and then see what happens after that. And so for me, that's like my steps that like I go through during a heat. If I get into that like really negative space.
What is the specific breathwork practice? Is there one, or you have a battery of different ones that you do?
I have like a bunch of different ones. Like there's like I found like a Wim Hof type breathing, like maybe not exact, but similar, like before competition. I always like doing it. It like really helps me if I'm nervous, get like just all the nerves and stuff out. And I feel really like confident after. So that's like one. During it can be more of like a really deep breath to like holding it. And then like, it's like kind of one I learned from Mike, but like deep breath and then like a little more and just feeling the tension and then just relaxing and letting everything relax with that. And sometimes I'll do that during heats, or during heats, I'll do like a quick, like in and out, like through the nose only. And just kind of getting that focus and counting that. And just little ones that like kind of help you just like get you out of whatever you're in.
Calm your nervous system down. Like it's incredibly reliable and effective.
It is. You're doing it all day. You might as well.
So you are flying out tonight. You're going to Fiji. Like you're basically living on a boat in Fiji right now, right?
Yeah.
And so what's the plan for this year? Just follow your muse and be with your family?
Yeah. So there's kind of like a few things. Like I really want to learn that aspect about the ocean. I want to learn more about navigating and weather and all that stuff. I want to learn about going to these remote areas and being able to surf. I want to learn to do it with my family on board and spend every moment with my son, watching him grow. And then it's great because my brand is like built around being outdoors in these like environments.
It's all in service to the brand.
Yeah. So I get to like test all this amazing gear and be like, this works, this doesn't work at all. And so I feel like it's like a really good, fun, just everything's kind of flowing together with it.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
Where can people buy your Florence gear? Is it in retail stores?
Yeah, we're in a bunch of retail stuff. And then we're online too, which is probably the easiest for most people.
What's the website for that?
It's FlorenceMarineX.com.
Cool. I think you should create a new website just for your photos.
Yeah,
as a creative project.
I've been thinking about it, like something. Yeah, it's on my mind.
There's some beautiful stuff just in some of the stuff that I saw.
Yeah.
Like it's really nice. I think people would enjoy that.
Thanks. Yeah, it's definitely on my mind. I just have to get around to it.
I always love athletes that are also artists or who aren't afraid to also pursue their creative whimsy. I grew up in a time where it's like you can't be both. Like you're an athlete or pick your lane. You know what I mean? And it's always really cool to see athletes who don't buy into that and are like, no, I'm doing both of these things.
Yeah, I think it's
and they don't compete with each other.
Fun to be able to pursue whatever you want to pursue. Life's pretty free. Like you can just like, okay, I like taking photos. I'm going to start taking some photos. And being okay with that. That's how you surf, or that's how your photos look, or that's who you are.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, last thing, let's wrap it up.
Yeah.
What is the one nugget of wisdom you want to leave people with about your unique life experience, this path that you've taken, the high highs, the low lows? that you want to go out with here? No pressure.
I might say
you want to take we'll do some breath work first?
Yeah, exactly. I might say something completely different next year or the year after that, because I feel like it's
this is a snapshot
changing.
of your life. This is where you're at in your life. Like I feel like you're in a really good place with your life right now. You would have to be to make the decisions that you're making right now.
Yeah. I think a snapshot of where I am right now is like just knowing a direction you want to go, having that goal set, but then just enjoying the process to that, whatever that might be. So it's not overthinking of like, I got to get this job or I got to win this goal, but like going like, okay, that's the direction I want to go. And I'm going to start here. And then I'm just going to take it step by step and enjoy whatever that process is. And I think you can apply that to kind of like anything you're doing and being okay, whether you fail or maybe you end up doing something completely different, but just having a direction and a starting point and taking a step to do it.
I think that's solid advice, man. Great to meet you. Thanks for doing this, man. I really appreciate it. This was super special and super fun for me. So
yeah, fun conversation.
Man. Come back anytime.
Thank you.
And you are an inspiration, dude. Like I love watching you do your thing. You're touched in many ways, and I'm a fan and wish you well and can't wait to see what the next chapter of your life looks like.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Cheers.